Best time of the year. Halloween whose roots come from all parts of the planet. You can't go wrong with that. Halloween is for everyone. This is a very special thing for me. I have waited a long time to be able to tell Deirdre's experiences. It was a very difficult time for her. But she finally feels comfortable and safe sharing what she went through. So as you listen, pay close attention. Maybe you know what she's going through. Maybe you don't. But who knows? The world has many mysteries. The universe is full of so much that we don't understand yet. The only way that we are going to learn is to be honest and open. So please, listen closely as I tell you in her own words, Deirdre's experiences. I'm not a person you would call a believer. I don't scour the skies for UFOs. I don't believe in ghosts, and I don't think videos about new evidence of Bigfoot are exciting. I look around at everything and I know it has a rational scientific explanation, and I am really, really good at finding it. That's my life. That's me. I just mull everything over until it makes sense. Something happened to me this day that I can't explain. That's why I stopped thinking about it. I haven't forgotten. I just don't let myself think about it. Before I shut it out of my mind, I just felt really, really scared. I felt really lost. I am a very logical person. My husband will tell you that in a heartbeat. I didn't have any experience with the feeling I was having. It felt like I was starting to doubt what I had always defined as reality. I know it's cliche, believe me, I really do. But I felt like reality was crumbling. I swear I could almost feel it happening. I talked to my husband about what I saw, and he had so many questions, too many questions. And he was just so supportive. Like, way too supportive. All I wanted was for him to tell me I was crazy, that I imagined it, that it wasn't real, even though I was crying because I was so scared. And of course he believed me. And then I just felt like, even more like it was real, when I needed to believe it wasn't. In the end, I got mad. I look back and realize it wasn't in my heart mad. Just, I had to invent reasons to be angry so I could pretend it never happened. That's pretty much all there is to it. I know I sound a little flippant. I am sorry. But it's better. It's easier for me to make this feel like it's only a story so that's how I wrote it to you. Also, I hate this, but there's a part of me who wants to know if anyone else ever saw anything like this. Back then, I rode 2 buses to and from work. You get off one and hope the other one comes quickly, and try not to think about how long it's going to be till you get home. On the way home, it was almost always really crowded. Rush hour. You know what I'm saying? You know how that is? You gotta stand on that bus forever, and you're tired, and your feet are killing you, and there's a bunch of high school kids that you know sat on their ass all day and could easily stand for hours, because that's what they're about to do. Get home and go right back out and stand around somewhere, just talking like conversation was just invented. But are they going to give up that seat? Hell no. Not that you would ever waste your time asking. Nope. Just stand there and wish, like always. So that was me. All I could think of was getting home and taking off my damn shoes. Eat something, have a drink, try to turn off the work brain thing. You know, where you should be trying to relax, but instead you're thinking about all this shit from all day that you can't do anything about anyway. And this is supposed to be your time, blah, blah, blah. Get out of my head. If I get a seat, I can space out. Just let my thoughts ramble. But when I stand, I have to either stare right at people, which I consider to be rude, or try and somehow look over them out the window. Yes, it helps that I'm tall, but still, you can only pretend to read the ads at the top of the bus for so long before people start looking at you like you're illiterate, or sometimes they look at you like maybe you're plotting against them. They always prefer you to look out the window, which I understand because I do too. So I was standing at the back door. I only rode for one stop before I saw her. A woman, very nondescript. White, short, middle-aged. She had a blonde ponytail like half-ass pulled back with all of this hair falling out like it's either she spent a couple hours in a strong wind or she just had a really long, rough day. The way her body sagged, I figured damn long, rough day. I couldn't see her face because when she got on and walked back, I was looking out the left side of the bus. But when we started moving, I turned back to the right, and there she was, standing with her back to me, between me and the back door. I felt bad for her. There was something just like tragic about her. Like, you know when you see a woman with a man who's treating her really bad? Like this man does not even try to hide it. And you can see she's just going to put up with it. Your heart just goes out to her, you know? And even though you know you can't do anything about it, you want to give her a hug anyway, but you know she'd look at you like you're crazy. Tragic like that. Like I said, I don't know why, but it was something about her posture. I mean, I guess. That's the only thing I can say. That's the feeling I had when I looked at the back of this woman. There was no one else standing next to us. There was a bunch of other passengers that was further up towards the front, and everyone else had a seat. I just stood and watched the streets go by. All the same shit I see every day, but still I always look at it. She was short enough I could look over her head out the back door, and I was really glad she was looking out the door too. Then she turned around. Really slow. Like she was even moving her feet all slow. Like she couldn't do more than shuffle. Like it hurt her to move. And I saw her face. Even though I'll tell you what I saw with my eyes, that's not what I saw first. What I saw first was incredible, deep, deep, deep sadness. It was overwhelming. I'm serious. It felt like a wall of this sadness just hit me, like physically. I remember that at this time I felt like I couldn't breathe. For a couple of seconds, and I remember I suddenly felt really shaky and just strange. Very strange. I don't know how to put I don't know how to put that part into words, but I'll try. I felt kind of prickly, and I know part of it was me making adrenaline, but I'm telling you, that wasn't all it was. At the same time, I saw her face. Her eyes. Her eyes were set far apart, but weird. Wrong. Too far apart. I know what you're going to say, but no. Not like fetal alcohol syndrome. I know what that looks like. This was just different. But I can describe what I saw because I've seen her in my head enough. Imagine if someone's face was made of wax, but their eyes were like made of something heavier, more solid, like glass. Say this wax-faced person went out on a really hot day and just stood there with their head tilted back. Their eyes would kind of move out to the sides, but also move down at an angle, be droopy. And then imagine if their face just stayed that way. So that's what she looked like. Very close to normal human, but not there. This happened in the space of about 30 seconds. Then I looked around because I knew someone else had to have seen this, seen her. Of course, no one did. They were just looking out the window or talking to each other or on their phone. I hated the way that her face was like a magnet, and it drew my eyes, and I didn't want to look at all. She just stood there. And you would think she was looking out the window past me, but no. Her eyes were so dead. Just dead. And still, somehow, there were these just waves of sadness never stopped. The way her body sagged, just like her face, it was like if just straight desperation had reached up from the ground and pulled at her, even stronger than gravity. It just ate her up and then left her empty, except for the sadness. I knew then, and I cannot explain why I knew such a thing. But I knew she had died. I knew she was gone. Whatever I was seeing, it wasn't her. Whoever she had been. Right then, I had the horrible feeling that someone, something, I don't even know, was in her body, moving it around, like the way you get in and drive a car. And also that for whatever reason, they were not very good at it. And I felt like wherever she was alone and she was lost. She was somewhere else, and she would never, ever be able to get back. I didn't have a long ride before it was time for me to get off the bus. It seemed like forever. Whatever it was I saw, not quite a person, shuffled around a couple of times. I had a couple terrible times where she moved her head, and I was so afraid she would look at me. I know it makes no sense when she couldn't look anywhere at all, but that's just the way your mind works. Eventually, she ended up facing the door again, but there was no way I was going out that door. I went out the front. The minute I walked into my house, I started crying. I was shaking and I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't stop thinking about her dead eyes. About a week later, I left to get the bus to work. A man was standing, just standing on the sidewalk. Tall, bulky. But you know how some people look like they were just slapped together at the last minute? He had a body like that. He was kind of slumping. Even though he had his back to me, I could tell he wasn't real young or real old, and I could see his hair was kind of straggly looking. He was just standing. I see people milling around all the time, so it wasn't a huge surprise. He was standing between me and the bus stop. I was walking towards him when a car drove by, going opposite the way I was going, with real loud music. I happened to be looking at this guy right then, still walking towards him. After the car drove by, he turned. So slow, shuffling, 1 foot at a time. A delayed reaction if I ever saw one. I started to think how funny it was, and by that time, I was about a second from walking past him, and he had turned enough for me to see his face. He seemed to be looking in the direction of the car, but he wasn't looking at anything, and I caught my breath. His eyes. He had the same eyes. Same weird, far apart, sagging, dead eyes, and he looked, no. He didn't just look. He felt so sad. I could not deal with that. I just had to keep moving. I had to get my bus, get to work. I knew what I saw, but I couldn't. I just couldn't. Then, one day, maybe 2 weeks later after that, my husband and I were on a bus. We pulled up to a light, and I saw this older looking white guy waiting to cross in front of us on the corner to the left. His hair was kind of sticking up, blowing in the wind. He was wearing those sort of shapeless, baggy clothes I guess old people wear because they lose weight or something and don't want to buy new ones all the time in case they gain it back. I never had grandparents, so there's a lot I don't know about old people. Anyway, something about his posture struck me as wrong. I can't say what. He was loosely clutching, and I mean loosely, some kind of bag. The way he was holding it, it really seemed like a miracle it didn't fall out of his hand. It was like it was in reality just glued on or something. He got his walk light. It didn't walk. He shuffled slowly across the street and crossed in front of the bus, and then he stood on the corner next to the front of the bus. Again, I didn't get a seat on the bus, so I was standing and facing the back door. But this time I wasn't alone. The bus started moving, and I felt like I was frozen. I was staring out the door, waiting for my 2 little feet of window to pass him so I could see his face. His lips were almost all there, but they weren't all there. A little bit of his teeth showed. There was just no mistaking it. And his hair. It wasn't just sticking up in the wind. It was only there in sparse clumps, which were blowing in the wind. Sparse, decayed-looking hair on the head with the decaying face. I spun around to my husband. "Oh my God, did you see that?" I knew he had to have. He was facing the door. He didn't see it. He wasn't looking, or he couldn't see the detail. I don't remember exactly. I just remember he didn't. I remember looking around as I rode through the intersection, looking everywhere I could see to see if someone was staring at this guy, but no one seemed to notice him at all. I was frantic. I told my husband about this guy I just saw, but honestly, that was pretty much the last straw. I just tried really hard and shoved all of this away. It didn't happen overnight, but I did it. I couldn't take any more nightmares about someone or something taking people, taking over their bodies, and throwing away their spirit or their soul or whatever it is that makes us alive, and throwing it away like it was trash. These stolen bodies just walking around empty, and the real person, the real people, are trapped forever somewhere horrible. Their sadness, it can't reach out forever, and eventually it fades just like their body rots as it walks, and no one even knows. I don't know what I'm saying. I only know what I saw and felt and thought. I only know that I have felt convinced that if I don't think about it when it's not, then it's not real. And if it's not real, it can't happen to me. I know that makes as much sense as thinking you're invisible when you cover your eyes. But whenever I think about it, I know it was real, and I hate it. That's why I don't want to be wondering if anyone else has seen. I don't know. Something like what I'm talking about. I want to know that someone else has, and I don't want to know that at all. Because then I can just keep telling myself, like I've been doing. No one wants to feel like they're crazy, especially when they've experienced something confusing, bewildering, something they can't explain. It's hard to understand, but there's a lot of things in this universe, the world that we see around us, that we don't know how to explain yet. And yeah, I have talked to Deirdre a lot. And she is a very logical, rational person, rooted very strongly in reality. No, she does not think that they're zombies. It's not some plague or virus or government experiment to create zombie super soldiers. She doesn't think that at all. This has been very difficult for her. And it's understandable. So what do you think, I ask you, on this Halloween? What do you think? How many of you have seen something like this? If you have seen somebody with the dead eyes, the drooping, slumping body, the overwhelming sadness coming in waves upon you. If you have seen this or experienced this, let me know. And I will pass what you tell me on to Deirdre. It might make her feel like she's less alone. A lot of people have scary experiences, and they feel alone. So, thank you. Thank you for taking this time to listen. Now, it is time to go. I have things to do, people to scare, blood to spill. I have, let's call a friend in the basement who's waiting for me. Perhaps you can hear their screams eventually. But until then, this is Keys Troy. We all see, because it's always easier to see from the shadows. Good night.